Nordic Tales and American Trails is an outdoor and hunting podcast focusing on tales and trails from Northern Europe and the USA, hosted by Erik Rohdin from Sweden and Adam Wu from Louisiana. The podcast covers all aspects of the outdoors, with a special emphasis of hunting with dogs. We will explore the unique tales and trails of our region, the various dog breeds used in hunting, and the differences in hunting practices between the USA and Northern Europe.
Erik, my man, we're back again. It's we actually flipped roles this time. It's nighttime over here, morning over there. Last episode we kind of dove a little deeper into my backstory and how I came about when it comes to hunting with dogs, and so I think this time we're gonna go a little more focused on how you began this journey.
Yeah, man.
I know. Like I said, our very first episode, I remember you were 7, and you were at your one of your neighbor's house, and that's kind of what sparked your interest. I mean, we can pick up from wherever you want, but do you want to go a little deeper into that?
Yeah, I think we can definitely go a bit deeper into that. So I grew up in a small town, or actually like between two small towns, where the paved road goes over to gravel road, so to say. And no one in my closest family is still to this day actively hunting. Or actually, that's not true anymore. My little brother has actually picked up his hunting license now, and hopefully I can start bringing him more into the woods as well. So yeah, no one in my closest family were hunting, and I can't really pinpoint why I got so interested in the hunting part of it. But like, I basically grew up with a very strong drive to be in the woods. Like, one of the best things for me with Christmas or birthdays was that my grandmother was back then recording like almost all nature programs on like a VHS recorder, and I was getting those tapes from her on Christmas Eve or on my birthdays. So I had like so many hours of just nature programs to watch. Like I think I still kept getting those recordings back until I was like 12, 13, 14 years old. And like, I just loved looking for on TV shows and movies about nature and being in nature. So from that, I think it was a natural movement to like be focused and interesting about hunting as well. Because like, I remember like, just before the moment when I was 7 years old, like if I would see a moose running across a field during hunting season, I would like cheer for the hunters to find the moose. Like I would definitely be amazed to see the moose, but like in my kid mind, I would like, oh, I hope the hunters find this moose so they have a good hunt. I can't say where it's from, but like it was just something that was always there when I grew up. So back to the 7-year-old me, I'm sitting at the kitchen table at my neighbor's. For those that didn't listen to the first episode, well, then you get not a repeat here, but so basically 7-year-old boy, never sitting still, always loud, running about. I then got told that if I were ever gonna be successful hunting moose, I need to be able to be silent, sit still, because, well, as most games are, like, if you move or you make weird noises, you definitely spook the game. But so yeah, that first autumn, I'm sitting with a guy called Kjell. We're in a shooting stand on a smaller field, like a farmer field. It might be like maybe 60, 70 yards across between two patches of woodland or forest. And I can still remember to this day, 4 mooses appears from behind us. Like, not from the area we're actually hunting, so like we're both facing, in that sense, the wrong way. Because here, a normal moose hunt, you have 1 or 2 maybe dog handlers, and then you might have from 5 to 10 to 15 people sitting in key locations on the property you're hunting. It might be a stand, or it might be just along a game trail, standing on the ground. But this case, as he had to bring a small child with him, like we got to pick one of the stands, and I was basically sitting on my little backpack below him, so he's like above my head height in the stand. So we see a bull moose and a cow moose with 2 calves coming across the fields, and I'm just sitting there and covering my ears and waiting for the loud bang. And I remember him shooting one of the calves, because the moose and the 2 calves came first, and behind them was the bull. And I still remember that he was like, "Oh, Erik, why didn't you tell me there was a bull moose with them?" Because, well, a bull moose is obviously bigger, but like he was so focused on like the cow and the calves, so he didn't actually spot the bull moose in the back. And I was like, "Oh, I thought you saw it." And I mean, like,
can I ask you, at this point, when you see the moose, are there dogs running those moose?
no. So, well, after we shot the calf, the dog appeared maybe 10-15 minutes later. So most likely the dog was on the trail of those mooses, but like it hadn't opened up or found them yet. But it might also be like on that field, on this area where I hunted, that's it's 1,600, 1,700 acres, so like 800 hectares, which would be the term we use here. So it's a smaller hunting area. So when you are 8 to 10 guys, basically leaving your car, walking into your stand, you're gonna bump game as well. And like nature will know that there's something going on, so game will actively move around a bit as well. But yeah, so most likely at that time, the dog was trying to catch up with the mooses.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, I didn't mean to derail it. I'm just trying to.
No, definitely not. I think it's definitely easy to like keep, to not think about that for me, I think. So like, yeah, so the dog showed up maybe 10-15 minutes later, and that was a Swedish moose dog, or elk hound, depending on which term we actually use for it, which will be the most like when it comes to the moose dogs here, it goes in waves. Like I think it's similar in America. Like if a breed gets popular, then that number is gonna go up for maybe 10-15 years, and then another breed might be popular and stuff like that. So back then I actually think the Norwegian elk hound was the most common moose dog, but these days it's definitely the Swedish moose dog.
And for the American audience, just to break it down a little bit, the Norwegian moose dog and the Swedish moose dog he's referring to, we would call in America a Norwegian elk hound and a Swedish elk hound, which is weird because their game is not elk, it's moose, but we call them an elk hound, and they're technically moose dogs. But I think that probably stems from the fact that moose in Swedish is elg, right?
Yep.
So
yeah,
I think that's where the name gets a little tricky there.
Yeah, and I think when I researched the reason for that name as well is that simply because we call elg, or in Norway it's also very similar with elk. So I think for some reason it just got to be that in English as well.
Right. Yeah, so the calf is down.
Yeah.
What is that? Kind of take me through, if you can, kind of remember a little bit of the feeling that you felt, I guess, whenever you see, or even when the game is coming, like the feelings that's going on inside as you're witnessing it happen. Is that kind of like how you imagined it was going to happen previously, or nothing like you imagined?
I think it's and still to this day for me it's definitely an emotional roller coaster. Like I remember very, very much excitement and joy, and in some sense like a triumph, because like I showed, because the guy I was sitting with was one of the persons that told me like, you're not silent or still enough for us to actually be able to shoot the moose if you would join us. So it was like in a sense a double victory. Like I showed him at that time, like he was probably 50 years old, so for a 7-year-old boy he was like an old dude, right? I showed that old dude that like I could be silent and we could get the moose even if he had to brought me with him. And it was funny because I think for the first 5 or 6 years, so from when I was like 7 to 12, and maybe every year I was joining for the first part or the first week of moose hunting. So in the middle of Sweden and south of Sweden, moose season starts back then the second week of October. Always have started on the Monday, and then you normally hunt Monday to Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, depending on how it goes, because most properties or most areas has a quota that we are allowed to harvest each year. So like for the first 5 years there, like whoever I was sitting with actually got to shoot a moose. So like I got to be like the crew's lucky charm, so to say. So like from them like trying to like, oh, I'm not sure we should bring Erik, and then like from maybe year 3 or so, like they were friendly arguing with who I was supposed to sit with this year, because whoever I was sitting with actually got to shoot a moose.
Wow, yeah, that's pretty awesome. So
something
something we talked about outside of the podcast after our last one was that the age difference, to where you're actually not even allowed to use a gun or shoot at all at the age you were at.
Oh yeah,
maybe
definitely.
You can explain that just a little bit.
Oh yeah, definitely. So like in Sweden, to be allowed to hunt and to get a gun license for the purpose of hunting with it, you need to be 18 years of age, and you need to have a hunting license, which would indicate a theoretical exams, very similar to like a driver's license exam. At least here, it would be like 60 to 70 questions. I think they've changed it over time, but I think it's 70 questions now, and you need to have a high success rate. And the questions will definitely go from like telling, you get the picture of a capercaillie, and you need to be able to tell it's a capercaillie or a blue or a mallard, like a duck. So you need to be able to tell the different duck species apart from a picture on the test. To gun laws, to bullet trajectories, to hunting dates. Like, so it's I think it's 8 or 10 different topics, from like gun laws to species diversity to all that. So you need to do that theoretical exam, and then it's gonna be 4 practical shooting tests that you need to pass as well. So it would be, you would shoot with a 22, like on, I think it's 50 meters. I think it's called a 22, like the small bullet caliber.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then you would have like gun, or sorry, you would actually start with a gun safety. So you will get a gun, you need to check that it's not loaded, and all that, and make sure that during these 3 or 4 hours that the test is gonna take place, because you might do the test and it's gonna be 6 or 7 other persons with you doing the test at the same time. Like, if you at any time during those 3-4 hours like point the barrel towards another person, like you will be failed, even if you pass. Like, so you judge for like those hours you're there, that you always handle the gun you have, the guns you have, you manage them safely.
Okay, so it really seems like the only difference, because our test and everything is pretty much the exact same, and but it seems to me is that the only difference is that with us, a younger kid can use a rifle as long as they're with a licensed hunter already.
Yeah.
And they don't have to have that. What we have is called our hunter safety course. I believe the age is 16 years old. You have to have it by. Prior to that, you can hunt with a licensed hunter, and you'll be fine. But afterwards, you have to have your hunter safety course once you're older than 16.
I-
And
Is that
then
is
go
that
ahead.
something that's in all states, or is it like from state to state? Do you know that?
I'm pretty sure that's in all states. As far as the hunter safety course, that's in all states.
Yeah.
Now licensing varies state to state, obviously, but the hunter safety course is pretty generic. So yeah, and then 18 years old is when you can have your own. You can purchase your own rifle under your own name.
Okay.
But
Yes.
other than that, so for you guys, you can't shoot at all until you're over
You
18.
No, you can similar to that you has done, but if you're with a licensed hunter and you need to be within arm length, you can start from age of 15.
Okay, okay.
So like in theory you could start early, but like for me, as none of my closest family member was hunting, I was just happy to be a part of the hunting groups that I was. So like I didn't push any of the old guys to like let them have, or like I didn't feel the need to push them to let me hold the rifle, so to say. So I was actually not shooting that much before I was 18 myself.
Right, right.
So
I get that. I get that.
yeah, so then back to the test of like, so then you're also gonna shoot clays. You're gonna shoot the running hare with shotguns, obviously. So clays that goes away from you, and then a running hare target, and then you're gonna have what we would call the big game test would be a moose. It would be, I think, it's 90 to 100 yards away. The moose figure will appear. You're gonna shoot one bullet. You're gonna reload, and then most areas now, well, like when the shot goes off, the moose is gonna start running. So it will be like the test will be standing still shot, running shot, standing still shot, running shot, and then you need to have all those 4 bullets. We need to be within like the kill zone, so which like the lung parts of the animal.
Oh wow. So yeah, your test is far more technical than ours for sure. I think for mine, all I did was they had to watch, like you said, watch me handle a shotgun, load it properly, holding it the proper way, and I think all we shot shooting wise was clay. They just threw up clay pigeons in the air, and we just had to shoot those.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
think they were really testing our shot ability, more so just the safety
Yeah.
part of it, So they want to make sure you're taking ethical shots. So
Yeah, definitely.
I like that. I agree with that.
And to this day, like most hunting areas, that it will call like the moose trial, and we have to do that every year. In I would say 90% of all the hunting teams here. So like you go to a shooting range and then you get a sticker or a text or a small page note from a shooting instructor that says Erik Rohdin passed the moose trial and the date. So you will still do that yearly in most teams, but it's not it isn't by law. It's just that it's a way to make sure that everyone in your team actually still can take ethical shots. So yeah. So and then after that you can at 18 apply for own guns, and here it would be you can get up to 6 hunting rifles, including or counting shotguns as well. But once you go above 4 guns, you need to be able to argue why you need gun 5 and gun 6. And for an American, I think that's not the norm.
Yeah, I'd be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
So that's cool, man.
It's definitely a lot more regulated in that sense. And I would say, like, for me, maybe the first 10 years, no, not 10 years, I'm not that old yet, but at least the first 5 years of hunting myself, I was only hunting moose. And I think that's the case for a lot of the Swedish hunters. Is actually, you're hunting the first moose weekend. It might be in September if you're up north, or it's going to be in October if you're in middle of Sweden or in south of Sweden. And like that's the majority of hunters will also maybe do that plus 1 or 2 weekends. Like that's the average hunter, which is like So like the moose is the king of the forest and also the king of the game when it comes to hunting here.
Yeah,
Which
yeah. I sure wish. I wish I was able to hunt them as well, man. It just seems like a majestic animal to be out there with.
yeah, and hunting with a dog is like it adds another level definitely. So yeah, that's me growing up, and so I was hunting within that like village team. So we dipped a little bit on it the first episode, but like over here everything is private. So like there's no public land. So for someone to actually be allowed to hunt, you need to most teams or most areas here you might have between 600 to 4,000 acres where I am at. And then it might be several private properties that has like formed a group together. Or it might be just one property owner, like a big logging company. And then they basically split up their property into smaller hunting areas. And then you have to apply for it or know someone that's in there to actually be accepted into the group. So it takes a lot of more effort to actually get somewhere to hunt. So for me, like I'm currently now on 2 moose hunting teams or areas where I can also hunt small games. But for the first 5 or 6 years of my hunting career here, we only had permit to hunt moose. So like once the moose hunting was over, like then I didn't have access to any other hunting in my main area. Like obviously I could go to a friend's place and hunt with him or something like that, but like my main hunt was only focused on the moose. And I think that's
still feel like the moose holds a special spot in your heart for that reason.
Yeah, definitely. Moose is still like for now it's definitely a bit of a double-edged sword. Like I love the first moose week. Like it's still now these days it always starts 8th of October. It doesn't matter which day it starts, but like it's like an homecoming weekend or a week. Like people will come back to where they grew up to hunt for a few days or a week. So it definitely holds a special place. But it's also like moose hunting here is as close to a religious as I think we can get here. Like there's always some controversy in most teams. Somewhat you might be angry on your neighboring property because they stole a moose back at 87, or like there's a lot of that going on. So for a dog handler it's amazing, but like you know it as well, like when you're hunting with baying dogs, preferably for yourself to have success, you would want to be as alone as you can in the woods. But like for that first week you will, so where I'm hunting this first week in a few months now, we will be 10 shooters and 2 dog handlers, and we will hunt from different areas of the property we're on. Maybe we will hunt from 400 to 800 acres at a time. And like, so it will be a lot of noises. There will be a lot of smells going around within that area. So like the odds of my dogs actually baying up a moose very well isn't that super high. But it's definitely very enjoyable and high up there in that regard. But like when it comes to like dog hunting, I might actually look more forward to like December or January when the weather is colder. Not that many people is actually interested in joining, because most areas, or the areas I'm hunt, like you pay the same fee to hunt, and then you're expected to, like the first couple of hunts, you're expected to be there to like help out. But like the further into the season you go, like people will prioritize their hunting, except for most of the dog handlers, because we just keep going anyway, right? So it's definitely a double-edged sword. I definitely look forward to it, but at the same time I look forward to most of the moose hunters be done so I can hunt more wild boars.
Yeah, I get that. So if we can, let's take it back. So you're 7 years old, you experience your first moose harvest, and from there, I don't want to jump too far ahead. If there's anything in between, you let me know. But how do you get your first dog?
So yeah, from 7 years old until I'm 13, I'm basically joining different neighbors, family, friends, sitting on basically with a shooter on a stand. I'm not sure if there's actually a better English term for it.
As far as stand goes?
Yeah,
Oh no, that's perfect.
yeah.
Same
So
thing.
then, so I'm sitting on a stand with someone without an own rifle, and then at age 15, take my hunter's license exams. And by then, I have actually started to join the dog handlers. So from maybe age 13 to 14, I'm in a physical shape to keep up with all the dog handlers. And then instead of asking hunters that gonna sit on a stand, I always ask the dog handlers if I can walk with them instead. So I do that until I'm getting my first dog. Now I'm gonna try to. So I get my first dog when I'm 23. So for 5 years after I get my own hunter's license, I do both. I walk with some of the dog handlers with their own rifle, and I borrow some dogs and all that. So I actually borrowed a Swedish moose dog a fair bit from a friend, and I hunt a lot with that dog. And that's like, it's not my own dog, but he's at that time not as interested in hunting anymore. So he has I think that female dog was 6 or 7 years old. So it was a finished moose dog. Like, it was a good dog. But he himself he wanted to do that first week and maybe a few more weekends, and then I basically get to loan the dog for free and do more weekend hunts and all that. So that's where my first exposure to like hunting alone with a dog. And then it has to be 7 years ago from now, so 2017, 18, there, somewhere around that region, I pick up my first dog, which would, as you said, it's a Russian European Leica. He's still around. His name is Gimli. He's now 9 years of age. So I pick him up when he's 1 year old, and at that time he already had a close encounter with a wild boar male. So he was gutted quite badly when he was like 9 or 10 months old. So the previous owner felt that he didn't want to keep pushing the dog on wild boar, and at that time I was only hunting moose. So I pick him up, and he's my first own dog, so to say. I grew up with dogs, but no actually hunting breeds, at least. So I start with him, and so luckily, like at that time, our moose dog handler on the village hunting team actually stops hunting. So I basically just slots in to take over his role as a dog handler on the smaller property where I grew up. So so it works out really, really nice. So I hunt there for 4 years, I think, with the Gimli. And I still remember, this is going to be the sidetrack story, but I'm hunting with Gimli. This is the first, I picked him up in July, I think. So this is October. So I have had him for 3 months. My first own dog, have actually never actually shot a moose for a dog at that time. So I like very green when it comes to dogs and dog handler, even though I've been around it for a lot. Like it definitely differs when it's your own dog and no one tells you to do. You just have to figure it out by yourself in a sense. So we walk by one of those old timers that 7-year-old me got told to, that I was not silent and walking enough, and he basically looks at my Garmin and says like, this dog is way too close to you, he doesn't range out too much, because especially my Russian European Lycas and a bit in Lycas in general, they're definitely closer to you as a dog handler than our more normal Swedish breeds. So Gimli, still to this day, like if he goes past 300 yards, I know he's gonna start barking on something. So like, he's definitely very valuable to have when you're hunting very small or narrow areas of a property. But like, this guy was used to Swedish moose dogs, which you let go and then the dog is gone until it finds a moose to bark at. So I'm standing at him, and Gimli is 250 yards away, and he's like telling me that you're never gonna shoot a moose for this dog. He's way too close. And then he starts opening up and base a moose 250 yards away. So I just sneak over there. I still, like, to this day, like, my hands are almost still shaking when thinking about it. Like, the adrenaline was so high, and I managed to get there, and I shoot this cow moose maybe 350 yards away from the stands where this hunter was just 20 minutes ago told me that I will never shoot the moose for this dog because he's way too close. And that enjoyment and happiness of like feeling success was so amazing. But then we had to pull the moose out from that cliffy area, and it took us like 4.5 hours with an ATV to even get the moose out. So it was definitely a struggle to retrieve it. And since that, they kind of banned that area for dog handlers to shoot at, because it's just a horrendous area to get to. But yeah.
So that if I can go back,
oh yeah,
if you don't mind. So did you say the dog's name is Gimli?
Yeah, his name is Gimli, awesome. from Lord of the Rings. Yeah, he's named from the dwarf.
That is amazing. That is.
It's not even named. Yeah, it's not even named by me. So, and
by default, he's a beast.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to say is, so previously, you got him at a year old. Besides the experience of the wild boar, does he have any training, or is all his training from you?
I would say in general, at least here with the Spitz breeds, like the training is basically let them go wild in the woods, right? Before that hunt, I have been with him in the woods. We have had some small encounters with moose and badgers and all that with him, but like I've actually not shot anything for him at that time. So I think that's one of the trickier part with the baying dogs, and especially the way we have it, that you can't really train your young dogs with another dog, because you'd never want the dog to learn to chase after barks. So you just have to, here would you use the term like sitta på en stubbe, which would be like sitting your butt down on a log, and letting the dog be around you from like week 8 when you pick up the puppy. Just expose it as much as you can to nature. I try to actively stay away from wild boar areas for at least the first 1 to 2 years for my dogs. I'm not sure if that's actually over careless, but like as Gimli got hurt so bad when he was young, like I've seen, and he still to this day, he doesn't hunt wild boar. Like he might run them for 30 seconds, but then he's gonna stop because he's just, I think the term would be scared for, like wild boar is too scary for him to actually engage.
That's another. I know varying opinions on that matter as far as the age at which you start for wild boar, because I know a lot of hunters that start them young, and a lot of them that start them a little older. I have a buddy here that don't start any of his until 16 months to 2 years old. They may do track and train and stuff like that, and exposing them to scent or bay pens, things like that. But as far as getting them out into the woods, because like you said, it can, especially if you're really focused on wild boar and you damage that dog early, like you said, they may never run them again, just like in the case of yours, you know.
And since then, I picked up a second Russian European Laika, which is named Lily, and she's half sister to Gimli, so they have the same dad. And then we also now have Daisy, which is 3 years old, and she's the granddaughter of Lily. So we kind of stayed within the same bloodline, and that's simply because I stumbled upon Gimli, which is a Russian European Laika. I haven't hunted or heard about that breed before, but like I was looking for a Laika, because at that time, and still to this day, I hunt smaller areas. Similar as you said, like I don't want my dogs to really ranged out. And part of the reason for me to be focused on Laikas in general is that where I'm hunting, we have had a big wolf population for the last 30, 50 years or 30 to 40 years. So like I've always grew up hunting within wolf areas. So I never wanted the dog to be too far away in that sense for both, well, for the dog's safety. When if like I want to be able to whistle and call in the dog if someone spots a wolf, so we can like put the dog on a leash and stop hunting basically. And that's why I went towards the Lycas in general, because most of the Lycas do actually actively try to avoid wolves by default, especially if you're, well, at least that's what I've been told, is that simply in Siberia, where most of the Lycas came from, like if a dog actually looked for a wolf, they would find a wolf, and that dog will simply be killed and not be used in breeding because it would not be around anymore.
Yeah, that's written in Vladimir Bergovoy, that's written in his book, that's a common characteristic for a Lyca, just to avoid, if they know a wolf is in the area, you can typically tell by their behavior.
Oh yeah, definitely. I can tell on all my two older ones, at least, so Gimli and Lily, I can, if as soon as I take them out of the car, if they smell a wolf, like I can tell right away. And that's something I valued now as I'm been hunting in areas where we have had wolves for so long now. So that's the reason I went for Lycas in general, and then the reason I just went for Russian European Lyca was simply because, well, a friend of a friend had this Gimli, and from there, and then I also talked with the breeder of Gimli and all that, and then we connected, and then I kept getting 2 more dogs from her. So yeah.
And so something I'm curious about is, when did you start getting into the wild boar hunting?
Well, I think wild boar has some, like in our area, so middle of Sweden here. I'm north of Örebro for anyone listening from Sweden. For the last 5 or 10 years, the wild boar population has slowly been growing up and up. And as moose is so like religious in a sense here, like it's very hard to find new properties to hunt for moose, because most teams will have 1 or 2 dog handlers. They might even be like, dog handler A here, well, his dad was a dog handler and his grandfather before was a dog handler, so like you're not gonna get accepted into that team as a dog handler anytime soon. But when it comes to wild boar, people are more inclined to invite you to their properties, because not all people with the moose dogs want their dogs to actually chase wild boars, for the reason that like the injury risk is a lot higher when you're hunting wild boars than moose. So that's partly of the reason. It's easier to get access to it, but I also think it's definitely a more fun hunt, especially how we do it, like with a few people. So in general, a lot less people than when you're on your moose hunt, and you might actually be able to hunt together with another dog handler. You might we might not throw a second dog on the bay, but you might walk in with a friend instead. So you're 2 guys sneaking in the bay, and so it's a more social and definitely more high action style of hunting, I think, and that definitely speaks to me.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So what was your, I guess, because it's something that's super distinct for me, that feeling going into my first bay, what would be like your first experience with one of your dogs baying their first wild boar?
So I have this has to be 3 or 4 years ago with the Lily, which at the time she's 8, and she's definitely my best dog currently. We were actually hunting a moose, so this has to be in like December, I think. So one of the other local teams that I'm actually not an active member of, they still had moose on their license. So basically, you get assigned or quotas. So you might get 1 adult moose and 1 calf per 2,000 acres or something like that. The numbers will definitely vary from south to north. But like in this area, you might have 1 or 2 adult moose plus 1 calf or something per 2,000 acres. So they still had a calf left on their license, and their normal dog handler was, well, unavailable. So they called me up, and I was like, yeah, do you have, what are we allowed to hunt today? And they were like, yeah, we're gonna focus on this moose calf, but we also have seen some wild boars around. And I was like, oh, are we allowed to shoot wild boars? And yeah, of course we can, because over here, like, as moose is so high up, like, people, like, if you're hunting moose, you hunt moose. Like, you don't shoot anything else. Like, you hunt moose. And that's it. I'm gonna come back to a story from last year in that regard. So I let Lily go. And we get to this maybe 6-year-old clear cut. So it's 3 to 4 meters high of now birch and spruces. So extremely thick. And she opens up maybe 150 yards into this thicket. And I can just by her bark, like, this is not a moose. Like, this is 100% a wild boar. At that time, she had a few encounters with the boars with me, but like, I wasn't even sure it was a boar, because her bark was so aggressively and so, like, intense that I was like, even debating with myself, like, could this be a brown bear, or like, is this a boar? Like, there was definitely something in her bark that was like, something is off here. So I'm trying to walk in, and I realize, like, there's no point trying to even walk in this. Like, I'm just gonna crawl under the the lower branches of the spruce. So like, half crawling, half walking forward. I get within 20 yards maybe, and I see and then Lily leaves the bay, comes to check on me quickly, and then goes back to bay. So like, I definitely know that I'm very, very close. Also looking at the Garmins and all that. And then I just hear how it feels like a tank just runs through the thickets, moves maybe 80 yards, and then stops again. And that kept going on for, I think, 6 or 7 times. And I think at the 3rd time I sneak in, I see the big, massive male boar, probably 120, 130 kilos, so well over 200 pounds. So then I'm like, okay, this explains why she sounds so different. But every time I get close, within 5 to 15 yards, I either see the boar or the dog. So I never actually get a clear shot of where I'm, because for me, I never want to shoot at a game. Like, I know the dog is there, but if I don't see the dog, I'm not going to take that risk, because the dog can obviously be behind the game you're shooting at as well. So basically, I just decided, like, I'm not gonna get on this bay, so I'm just gonna bump it aggressively so it hopefully runs on one of the shooters. So I call out on the radio, like, okay, so Lily has a really big wild boar here. It's a male. I'm 100% sure it's a male, because we prefer to not shoot the females if we're not 100% sure they don't have any piglets around, right? For ethical reasons. So I'm just calling out on the radio, I'm gonna bump this hard, so be ready. It's gonna come fast, and it's gonna be a big boar, and it's a male. So I bump it, and then I tracked on the Garmin, looks at the Garmin, it keeps going 200, 300, 400 yards, definitely clear of the thickets. And I look at the Garmin, I'm like, there should be a shooter at this crossroads, and it goes straight through the crossroads, but there's no shot coming. I'm like, he has had to seen that. So I keep waiting. She takes off. She keeps going for 2,000-3,000 yards away. She keeps getting the boar bayed up now and then, but at that time, like, it's way past the property we're hunting. So I call up, and I normally don't. I wouldn't use the radio. So I walk over to the shooter, right? Because I don't. You don't want to talk about everything on the radio, because you don't actually know who's listening and all that. So I walk over to him, like, did you see it? And he's like, yeah, I saw it, but it was so big, I thought it was a moose calf. So my mind froze. Like I knew we could shoot the moose calf and wild boar, but like you said it was a boar, but it was so big, I thought it was a calf, and I just froze.
Oh my gosh!
And
man,
yeah, and those tracks are still to this day. Like when that boar crossed that gravel road, like if like it looked like a boar track, but like the size, it looked like a size of a small moose.
Right. Man, that's insane.
Yeah, and back to this.
Did you feel sort of disappointed you weren't able to get it, or kind of just
No,
it was just an exciting moment?
It was so excited and so fun to see. Like this thicket that I was crawling and walking, I think we were in there for like 45 minutes, and like it kept circling around it. So like the first 2-3 times I tried to, okay, I'm gonna have the wind correctly, I'm gonna walk as silently as I can, and I mean like the last 4 tries I was like, screw this, I'm just gonna walk straight, I don't care if the wind's in my back, I'm just gonna walk over there. And nothing worked. he was so safe in that thicket, and I think he knew that. No, so like obviously it would have been amazing to get it, but like it would maybe add 5% of enjoyment. But
yeah, you still had a great experience.
Yeah, it was amazing. So back to like the whole, you only hunt moose. So the current team on we hunt 4,000 acres. It took for 2 years now. I've actually got the old timers to accept that we can shoot moose, wild boar, and red deer now on the moose hunts, which they're like, oh, okay. They're not super excited about it. So if you shoot the red deer or wild boar, the shooter has to take care of it because they're basically there to fill their freezer with the moose meat. But at least it's okay to shoot those games now. So Lily picks up wild boar, maybe 80 kilos. But sadly, it's between where I let her go and the property ends. So she goes south. But up there, we actually have very good camaraderie with the teams around. Like, everyone knows which radio channel you're on, so you can call ahead if your dog goes over the property line, or if someone spots a wolf or something like that. We have like text chains where we talk with each other or warn each other for a wolf or if something very happens. So I basically tell my team that, oh, Lily picked up a wild boar, and it's the 4th or 5th season I hunt wild boars with her, so I know like if she picks up a wild boar, she's not gonna stop. There's no point that early on in the hunt for me to try to call her back. Like, she's not gonna listen. She's way too excited to hunt those wild boars, so she just goes straight south for a. So she goes over the property line. I swap over to the radio and I call up their team or their hunting leader, and I just tell them that, oh, my dog is coming from this area. She has what I judged as a male boar. She might come into your area. You're more than welcome to shoot the wild boar for her. She has no problem with other dogs or anything like that. But I'm gonna go in my car now and I'm gonna go south and try to pick her up so I don't interfere too much with your guys' hunt. Because I think over here there's like, if you can, you try to not mess with other people's hunts. So I see on the Garmin how she goes a few hundred yards and then it bays up, stays for 10-15 minutes, and this is now 2,000 yards away from the closest road. So there's no way for me to get to the dog and the boar without like walking past other hunters that's between me and the dog. So like I just judge, I'm just gonna stay on the gravel road. I'm gonna wait it out. That interferes with them they're hunting the least. So she goes through their whole hunting area. She goes maybe 4,000 or 5,000 yards through their area. And then finally I drive around and I get to a gravel road crossing where I see the boar tracks, but Lily hasn't crossed yet. So I basically stand there on the road and she comes very happily wiggling her own tail, looking at me like, wait, why are you here with the car? I want to keep hunting. But like, oh, come on, Lily, we're on the wrong area here. And she's like, okay, jumps in the car. And I really don't think more about it that day. But then on the end of the season, we have like a team leader meet with all the hunting teams in the area. Like we're part of like a bigger group. So we get the yearly quotas from like the bigger group, and then they split it out depending on how sized the team is. So then without knowing it, I end up next to the guy, the property that Lily hunted the wild boar over, and he's like, yeah, she bayed that boar up before like 3 or 4 of our different shooters, and everyone kept asking, can we shoot this wild boar? It's bayed up here with a beautiful black dog. It's straight in front of my stand. And their hunting team leader was like, no, we only hunt moose.
Oh, wow.
So
that's interesting.
So she literally bayed up that boar in front of other hunters 3 or 4 times, and they even had the time to like call on the radio, like, there's a boar here. Are you sure we can't shoot this one?
And wouldn't you think that would be less disrupting to put an end to it?
Yeah, and the funny thing is, they don't hunt boars because they don't want to hunt boars. But like in my mind, okay, if you don't want to hunt boars, if you shoot the few boars that are around, you're gonna have less boars. Yeah, so like it definitely didn't make sense to me.
It's almost like they're conserving them.
Yeah. So I think
funny.
That's one of the few times I was angry, because like she worked that boar for a good 4-5 hours, and like it went a few hundred yards, she bait it up, it went a few hundred, so like she did the good job, and that I was like, oh, god damn it.
You'd love for her to be rewarded for that, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, now I get that. But look, we're creeping up on an hour here. I want to ask you before we have to end it. So how about you tell us the dogs you have now, and if you have any like current goals or aspirations you're working towards?
Oh yeah, definitely. So I have 3 Russian European Lycas, and I've just picked up a West Siberian Lyca. And the goal currently is to move over to the West Siberian Lycas for some different reasons, but to name a few, like the Russian European Lyca bloodlines or the number of dogs are so low, so it's very, very hard to actually find good dogs to breed with. And also, without getting into too much Lyca mentality, but like the Russian European Lyca in general, I'm sorry if I offend someone, they're a little bit more mentally unstable in a sense. Like, it's something the breed is known for. They're simply just, there are not that many dogs around, so you have actually bred on a bit more mentally unstable dogs than you have within West Siberian and East Siberian Lycas in general.
I have heard this. I've actually heard that before from a Ukrainian hunter, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, like it's a fact is a wrong term, but like it's known that they're a little bit less stable in general. Like the Lily we have, she don't give a rat's ass about other dogs or anything like that. So like in that sense, she's extremely stable. But like in general. And I've seen that tendencies now with all the 3 ones I have. So I'm simply just want to try something else within the Lycas. And then after being in American hunting with West Siberian Lycas, I was like, it would be fun to just try the West Siberian Lycas as well. Because over here, the East Siberian is a lot more focused on just moose. While the West Siberian Lycas, you can still find bloodlines and breedings that is focused on still like the vast majority of games. So like from forest bursts with capercaillie to moose to wild boar. So it's still on paper it's a bit more diverse baying dog still, while the East Siberian is a bit more focused on just moose. So that's why I went with the West Siberian. So I have Sarah now. That is my 7-month-old West Siberian Lyca. So we have four Lycas, 3 Russian European and 1 West Siberian. And then we also have a small companion dog, which is a Mittelspitz.
Okay.
Which is just our farm house dog. So he stands for all the barking when someone shows up. And then the Lycas just help him bark a bit louder if needed.
Yeah, bay up in some intruders, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
So So your majority of your experience is with the Russian European Lycas. I don't know how much experience you've had with West Siberian Lycas over there in Sweden, but as far as when you came to America and hunted with them, what are some of the key differences you noticed between the Russian Europeans and the West Siberian Lycas, if
I
any?
I think in general, when it comes to like the hunting style, I don't think there's much difference at all. I think if you look at all three Leica breeds here, you will have a more what do you say, like the difference within the breed will be bigger. Like if you take one West Siberian Leica and one West Siberian Leica, the difference between those two dogs can be bigger than it would be from a West Siberian to a West Russian European. So like the difference isn't that big between the breeds, I think. Now I've only had Sarah here for a little bit because she's so young, right? But just the mental stability, like she doesn't care about anything, in a good way. Like
Yeah, happy go lucky.
yeah, she's happy. She's like if a lumber truck goes by on a gravel road full speed, she just sits down and look at the truck and like, okay, there was a lumber truck. While if I would have Daisy with me, which would be the 3-year-old Russian European, like she would like look at it, maybe lower her tail a little bit, walk into the ditch. Like she wouldn't be afraid of it, but like she wouldn't be as relaxed with it in that sense. So I think, but I also know of West Siberian Lycas that is more unstable. If you want to, it feels like a wrong term, but I hope people understand what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah, no, there's just I don't know what the most proper phrase would be for it, but I think especially most houndsmen are gonna know what you're talking about. I mean, the 14 years that I've had West Siberian Lycas for, I mean, the differences between all of them are pretty renowned. While they follow a lot of the same hunting traits, there's just, like you said, you can find a lot of differences in between the individual dog that seem to be even more separate than the other Leica breeds.
yeah, definitely. And for me, the main reason I got Lycas was partly the wolf problem. I'm not sure, I don't want to say problem, but like the wolf impact that it has on hunting. So that's why I still want to stay with the Lycas. And also that a lot of the breeders of maybe Swedish elkhound or Norwegian elkhound, they prefer if you only hunt moose. And for me, I love to hunt those badgers early in the season during night times, which I do plenty with my Lycas. I also like to especially hunt wild boars and all that. So like, I definitely think that's the reason I'm probably most likely for now gonna stick with Lycas, because I enjoy hunting capercaillie as much as I do moose or a badger or a wild boar. And that's the beauty, I think, with the Lycas, is that they're so versatile in what you can hunt with them. It's all baying game, but like, yeah.
No, I agree completely, man. The versatility of them is amazing. I mean, one of the most versatile hunting breeds for sure. Man, hey, I appreciate that. That was an awesome brief history of your dog experience. And hopefully now the audience knows a little bit more about me, a little bit more about you. From here on out, we can, if anybody has any questions or any guest recommendations, we have quite a few I know that you and I have in mind. So I'm pretty excited for the future. And that's going to go ahead and conclude this episode. I hope you enjoyed listening to Erik's story as much as I did. And we'll have it up by Wednesday or Thursday, depending on where you are. And we'll continue that trend weekly. So enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your night, wherever you're from. And tune in next week. Thank you.